"Wake up," said a deep voice in Casimir's head. "You're dreaming." "Yeah, I freaking hope so," Casimir said, almost feeling the blood streak across the whites of his eyes as he stared down the beast before him. The freak stood taller than the servant shacks, and, by the gods, its eyeballs swayed in the breeze. Dangling against its neck, hung from veiny cords, beads of black blood lining each muscly thread, glimmering nastily in the sunlight that led into its empty eye sockets. Sweat wiggled between Casimir's toes, greased the grooves of his palms, dribbled down his face and made the pimples there sting. The juice in his throat clicked and smacked like a hanging man's. Breath wheezed through his mouth. The beast grumbled and hunched down on all fours, a thudding seeming to match the slow rhythm of its quaking breaths. Heart thundering, Casimir squinted, unable to do anything but try to locate the source of the strange thuds. Glares reflected off the thudding stones, jutting out of the beast's skin. Somehow, the stones rose and fell, beating like how a dead heart might. And around the stones, the beast's thick fur blew in the breeze, one patch oddly missing. A scar the shape of a lightning bolt stretched across the space, over its chest, up into its neck. Beyond confused, Casimir debated making a run for the ledge of the steep hillside and jumping off. Falling to death had to be better than getting his flesh cleaved by those long claws, or his bones crunched by those fanged teeth that hung over the beast's lips wet with black spit, which slobbered down its furry chin in hungry gobs, as if preparing for the meal Casimir was. He tried to breathe deep. A gusting wind clutched his feet, the beast whimpering crazily ahead. "Why must it be Casimir who kills me?" said a voice again within his head. "Why not Verelyn, he who names me his nemesis? The man would love nothing more. Because, Porphydius, the risen must triumph over the fallen in life, as it is and always will be in the afterlife." Flailing from that wind, Casimir landed in the itchy grass of the hillside, something bumping his waist on the way down. A blade forged for a single purpose: to rend the flesh of monsters. Before he knew it, he had drawn the sword from his sheath on his sword belt. And how odd, this blade. He wasn't strong enough to wield a sword, never mind one this big. But see, he hadn't gripped it. It had gripped him. The breeze rustled his dark blue cloak as his hands worked the grip of the blade. Thud, yet it came differently than the stones and the beast opposite him. Stronger, crisper, more honorable, even. Casimir turned the sword over to find more thudding stones forged into its grip, each stone glowing, beating, liquid pulsing outward from within. Casimir gave the blade a swing. The steel cut the air, left dark blue strands lingering in its path, scenting the air with an overpowering sweetness that somehow tasted blue. "Ah," he said, not knowing how that worked. Oh well. All he knew was to kill the freak of freaking nature he found himself darting toward. Casimir closed in on the beast in no time. He bent his knees, heaved air into his lungs, and grunted as he jumped, a mere 10 strides or so from the monster raging right at him. The wind rose like an approaching army, yanked Casimir from the air and hurled him away with impossible strength. He landed on the hard dirt and waist-tall grass. Black dots speckled his vision. Throbs pulsated through his head. In gods, did his legs hurt? He pushed himself up slowly, having to blink forever before his eyes focused and the black dots vanished. The wind had flung the beast perhaps half the distance it had him, yet the freak seemed to have landed worse. Black blood stained its fur, oozing from a gash on its forehead. That storm of wind, it had crashed the beast head first into a boulder, but gently tossed him into the grass. And Casimir squeezed the smooth leather grip of his blade. Then the very fabric of the air changed. The beast whimpered like a wounded dog ahead, its eyeless gaze raised, as if whatever was happening overhead mesmerized it. It surely mesmerized Casimir. Clouds churned in the sky, grayness swallowing the blue of the day in an effortless gulp, with newborn shadows cast upon the hillside, seeming to smother the world's hope. The ground started to shake. Casimir tried to back up, but the trembling of the land made every step an ordeal. Storms of air howled in his ears, tugged at his clothes as vibrations rippled up through the cores of his every bone. The wind grew restless, strips of his servant rags flying off, making him clasp tufts of itchy grass to avoid being swept into the sky. The beast shrieked, then cut itself off, frozen, everything seeming to brace for impact. This isn't going how I planned. Few things go as planned when one whose veins run dastardly arrives, and to think he was once your truest of friends, how far some can fall. A drop of sticky hotness splashed onto Casimir's wrist, trickled down his hand, leaving a red trail. He tilted his head up and watched, breathless, frozen himself, as blood fell from the sky. Grumbling, the beast battered the ground with its hooves, charging toward Casimir. It snapped him into focus, eyes hardening, preparing to sprint the best sprint he could. The monster had to die. Blood drenched his cloak before his first stride, stained his tan skin a sticky red before his second, squished under his boots before his third, puddled deep on the ground before his fourth, mere seconds from impact with the charging beast. Crack! And they both halted as the thunder rumbled, a cloud appearing between them. Red sparks, like many lightning bolts, buzzed across the wisps of the thundercloud, grimmer, graver, more hateful than those amidst the onslaught of darkness and blood overhead. Salty blood wetting his tongue, Casimir wiped the sheen of red sweat from his forehead and hunched down in the thick grass of the hillside, tried to hide himself. A person emerged from the thundercloud. Great spirits of the risen, tell me, why must the man once my dearest of friends haunt me? O child, Verelyn the Dastardly haunts us all. The beast reared up on its hind legs, shrieking in a shrillness too sharp for a set of ears not to ring at. The person simply turned to Casimir, the thundercloud following them like a shadow. Casimir shuddered, hunched down some more. It didn't work. The person, a man, found Casimir's gaze with his eyes burning black, somehow more mystifying than the thundercloud over his shoulders, somehow eerier than the blood raining from the sky, somehow more hateful than the beast ahead of them. The beast's hooves savaged the ground in another charge after that moment of surreal stillness. The man turned and thrusted what appeared to be a staff, a gigantic hunk of horribly jagged, yet stunning wood, up in a jolt that made Casimir flinch. Thunder cracked but didn't stop this time, as if reacting to or obeying the man's staff, the lightning marbling the skyline in time-shattering flashes of red, not blue-white. Casimir hadn't realized he was holding his breath. He gasped but struggled to get enough air. Blood pounded onto the land and stole a life from his lungs. Thunder boomed in the distance, yet seemed to strike down his throat. His heart lived below his belly button and clobbered his soft flesh 100 times every second. Something exploded so violently Casimir swore it stole his soul. A pair of thunderbolts struck the hillside, one just missing the stampeding beast, exploding the grass and trees into raging fires. The beast screeched, dodging the growing flames with twitchy speed. Then it rampaged through the last few dozen strides it had to cover to reach the man. Its dangling eyes flapped crazily in the storming air. Its hind legs kicked up heaps of the ground that the wind took for itself, carrying off into the sky awash with blood, cracking with thunder, flashing with red lightning, and all but whispering the silent song of death into Casimir's ears. His eyes bulged, the beast nearing the man. But the beast was his to kill, right? Yes, it just was. Casimir bolted toward the man and the beast, sword steady in his grip despite the sticky lining of hot blood in the seams of his palms. Still, he couldn't make it in time. Surely, the beast a mere second or two from mauling the man with the big black cloak and the thundercloud latched onto his back. The beast grumbled and swept its claws sideways in a lunging maneuver. The man bent his knees and crouched low, as if that'd save him, claws of the monstrosity nearing his flesh. The man lowered his body a smidge more, a millisecond from contact. Then he shot some 6 paces into the air, missing every claw with ease. Raising his free arm while soaring into the sky, a massive set of bursting thunderclaps rumbled in perfect timing, the flashing of the lightning like a glimpse into the cruelest, reddest, the most beautiful hell. The skies blasted lightning into the man, but he clenched his fingers around the crackling, sputtering bolt of blood red that morphed into a kind of lightning spear in his hand, the length of perhaps 20 aligned swords. Black cloak fluttering, long hair waving, he peaked in his jump, his whole body bending nearly backward as he began falling, gathering every ounce of momentum possible. Will the boy truly be able to stop Verelyn? One day, long after the perfidy? Porphydius said, long after my death. The risen have always been greater than the fallen, and the heroes together are fated to be greater than even the Lord of the Fallen himself. But the fates are never sure, Porphydius. So it is perhaps up to you, the boy, and your wife to determine if Verelyn, the hateful, the fallen, the dastardliest of all the dastardlies will ever be stopped, in both life and the afterlife. But do know this, for realism, perhaps. We risen are the chosen, not the fallen, for the hateful have not fallen into the hellfire without reason. The black-cloaked man launched the lightning spear at the beast with a speed Casimir's eyes couldn't even track on the way down. The spear clapped in a colossal explosion of sputtering buzzes and blood-red flames, shaking the foundation of the hill with vibrations that seized Casimir's feet. He tumbled to the side, twisted his ankle, but still heard the cries of the beast, surely caught by the lightning spear. Casimir ground his teeth to keep his eyelids up. Water welled out of his eyes from the heat of the fire sizzling the beast. Yes, the beast had been caught, based on those whimpers, that sick scent of burning fur, the gut-churning sizzles of flesh cooking, yet that only seemed to spur the thunderstorm. The sky speared lightning down in jagged bolts that melted the grass, felled the trees, might as well have made time stop when each red flash engulfed his vision, the afterimage lingering in his eyes and speckling black dots randomly. All while the blood pummeled down, seemed to thump on his skin rather than splash. Grunting, Casimir managed to fumble upright, favoring the rolled ankle, the throbbing of it like a fingernail being ripped off one long strip at a time. But he had to go. The flame spread and spread. The lightning struck and struck. He limped away as fast as he could, fearing for his chances. Cracking of thunder, gusting of wind, flashing of lightning, crashing of blood. Some good distance put behind him, perhaps safe at last. Casimir turned and squinted. Ahead, roasting alive in the flames. The beast did a sort of crawl. Gods, the thing still wasn't dead. Sputter! From the beast. Casimir jumped. Bolts of red lightning glinted across a thundercloud at eye level, shadowing the black-cloaked man as he strolled closer to the beast, as if to finish it, having appeared almost out of nowhere. What must I do differently in the real world to escape death at the hand of he fated to become lord of all that is wrong with the world? Tell me, almighty risen, could it be any simpler, Porphydius? The boy needs more power. The man stopped at an angle where Casimir could see his face. He hardly noticed the man's sharp jawline or stern eyebrows, though, because the hill trembled and the strikes of lightning ruptured the very binding of the air, the beast shrieking a death cry, its whimpering growing weak as the rumbling of the thunder grew berserk. Casimir ran as fast as his rolled ankle allowed, but the thunderstorm didn't care. Fire and flames and lightning and blood and thunder and death and fuck, he was gonna die, and oh shit, the fire is everywhere! By the fallen, I command you to wake, the deep first voice said from within his head, seeming so close it made all sense of touch appear tingling. Or was that the numbness of being burned alive after a bolt of red lightning struck him, crisping every stretch of skin into a flake of ash, every bone into a blackened ember? Blurriness, silence, twitch inside the wrists, pounding behind the eyes, deep within the ears. But the worst were the wrists. Something moved inside them, right at the crossroads of vein and artery below the palms. Aches turned into throbs, hounded whatever remained of Casimir's senses. His wrists felt broken. In fact, his whole being felt broken. A snaking and twining came from the underside of his wrists, like an eel squirming under the water, but instead beneath his skin. Casimir groaned. He pulled his eyelids open with effort. So much effort. Who knew eyelids were really iron gates that took 2 million pulley systems, 1,000 men, and 100 engineers to open? Eyes finally open. They flitted in and out of focus. He sat up and the warm meat of his palms chilled on the cold stone of wherever he bloody was. Surprised, the deep voice said. Wait, the deep voice wasn't in his head this time. Casimir blinked thoroughly and let his surroundings clear, his vision focus. Well, the man said. Where are... Casimir cut himself off as he recognized the big black cloak of the man before him, a fancy red tunic underneath. The man from the dream. Same handsome features. Something on his neck he hadn't noticed before, too. Is that there a fucking eyeball? And Casimir pointed to the medallion, a glob of white flesh within, lidless, golden, yellowish veins streaking over the whites of the eye that seemed to stare back at him. It is. Casimir swallowed, fought back the urge to curl up into a little ball. Perhaps he was still dreaming. After all, one couldn't dream the features of a stranger, right? The man walked closer. Then he clenched his fists, one normal, the other charred black, as if burned, scarred from catching red lightning. Your name? Casimir. I'm Verelyn. I wish I could say it's a pleasure, but you saw to that, not me. Verelyn, the name for Phidias, whoever that bloody was, and the other voice talked about, Casimir recalled, a wave of tingles rushing across his skin. He swallowed again, the click in his throat louder, the pace of his breaths faster. The chance of this being another dream lessened with every second, he figured. He forced himself to meet the eyes of this Verelyn fellow, half expecting the burning black eyes he'd seen in the dream. Verelyn, however, looked back with one teal eye, the other a stark orange. Casimir swallowed once more, the madness of Verelyn's two different eye colors small next to the picture of those burning eyes of that evil pitch black. Verelyn? And his voice cracked when he said the name. Where are we? Verelyn's eyes soured, cementing the image. Casimir's throat did something between a click and a croak. He checked around the cave walls to dodge Verelyn's iron gaze. Odd glowing stones, like in the dream, stuck out of the dark walls. They echoed a faint kind of beat, he noticed, like a thud of a hammer. Or better yet, like a beat of a dead heart, just as they had in the dream. Yep, I knew it. I'm gonna fucking faint. All right. And Verelyn speed walked to a nearby table and grabbed a big jug. Then he came back, liquid sloshing inside the thing. What are you doing? Verelyn dumped the jug over Casimir's head. He wheezed. Ice-cold water soaked through his wool clothes, made them stick to his skin. Chunks of ice worked inside his shirt, bristled the hairs on his chest, and slid down in chills that left him gasping for air. Now that you won't be fainting, Verelyn said as he sat on the table, to business. Right. Yes, of course, Casimir found himself saying, somehow managing not to freeze to death. You just heard the first 6 pages of Verelyn, the Dastardly, the Fallen, and the Risen by me, Brandon Baltus, and I'm also going to read to you next the description of the book, or the blurb, the part of it that is on the back of the book, which we can see if we click on the sample look inside on the Amazon page for the book, which is going to be linked in the pinned comment along with the description. And you can read this entire sample by yourself If you like, you can read the description as well by clicking that link, clicking look inside. It's pretty self-explanatory. So here we go with the description of my novel here, Verelyn the Dastardly. We wake after death. Lost in the depths of hellfire, the hammer of madness beats farther down our throats, with no hope to escape. No hope but one. For he who would be our Lord yet lives. The dark path of the fallen his to descend, the prideful risen his to sever, and the dastardly his to awaken. And our Lord, oh, but he must triumph over the heroes of the risen, because here in the afterlife, the kiss of hellfire burns your eyes out quick, but melts your flesh nice and slow. Then you wake, do it again, forever. So, burning, we await our day of reprisal, guiding he who would be Lord down the path he must take. And one day, we will claim the paradise of the risen for ourselves, with our Lord leading us into battle to escape this agony. Oh, but we must escape. Verelyn the Dastardly bridges the gap between epic and dark fantasy while incorporating the humor most fantasy series leave to the dogs. It will fulfill fans of Brandon Sanderson, George R.R. Martin, or Stephen King, and some other fans of other authors, I hope. Leave them drooling for book 2 of Brandon Baltus's fantasy series, The Fallen and the Risen. It's available in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle, obviously. And I don't think I need to say anything else. It's very self-explanatory. It was published August 9th. There should be 0 typos in the book. There may be a few that got past me, but there should be 0. And with that being said, feel free to get out of the video if you have something better to do now. Like, subscribe, whatever, if you want to support me. And keep up to date with this channel, as it will be this channel and my other channel, which will also be pinned in the description and in the comments, depending on which channel you're viewing this from. To support me, feel free to keep up with both channels. And if you're interested in stocks or Bionanogenomics, ticker symbol BNGO, which is a company, publicly traded company on the stock market, feel free to follow the Auspicious Descent. Subscribe to that channel as well, which is also mine. With that being said, thank you all so much. I hope you love the book. I think you will. If you like fantasy, if you're an average person and you like fantasy, I think there is an extremely high chance you will enjoy the book and be glad that you bought it if you do decide to purchase it. Extremely high chance. That's what I think. I could be wrong. Your taste could be way different than mine. But if you like any of these authors or anyone similar to them, or if you like fantasy, extremely high chance you will like this book. So buy it now. Buy it now, please. Salesman is coming out of me. Anyways, with that being said, thank you all so much. This is Verelyn the Dastardly, my novel. I will see you all in the next one.